I'm Simon Harris and welcome to episode number 10 of the vlog. Can't believe it's 10 already and I can't believe that most of you are still watching, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for that. You'll notice that the background's a little bit different today, and that's because I'm not at Dentsu's offices in Regent's Park for a change. I'm over at the Adobe Experience Centre in East London. It's full of fantastic people. I've had lots of very interesting conversations. I've been here for a couple of days, and what I will say is it's great to kind of take a step back occasionally and take a more strategic view of things. Obviously, when you're like me and you're still hands on keyboard, you kind of get drawn into the day-to-day tactics and driving business performance for your clients, and obviously that's really, really important because that's what we're all here to do, but also it's good to take a step back occasionally and kind of get that helicopter view of things. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for, well, they were TubeMogul back in the day, and they're now obviously the Adobe Advertising Cloud, and let me tell you why. Little known story about me: before I worked in programmatic buying, I actually worked in paid social, and I worked in paid social and programmatic at the same time. And back in the day, TubeMogul, now Adobe, were the only people that ever put out any good research whatsoever, and it was really deep insight into what programmatic was, what all of the markets were doing, and where the market was going. So it was really fantastic, and it was really helpful for me as I was kind of making that transition from doing both paid social and programmatic at the same time to doing programmatic full-time. To be honest, I think without the research that TubeMogul were putting out back in the day, I couldn't have made that transition without going back completely to step one, so I owe them a huge debt of gratitude for that. The other reason I really, really like Adobe Advertising Cloud is because they don't straddle the buy and the sell side. They're kind of like the trade desk from that perspective, and I really rate that. And kind of what that means for a buyer like me is you know that they've always kind of got your best interests at heart, and they're not trying to kind of balance that kind of buy and sell side play. I think that's really important. Being here for a couple of days, I have to say, does mean that I've missed most of Adweek Europe. I say missed, from what I've heard, it hasn't been particularly scintillating this year. Obviously, all of the headlines have been dominated by Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. I saw that Lara from the Wall Street Journal was talking last night about sort of Google and DoubleClick's investigation into integrating blockchain into the DoubleClick stack, and I think that's really interesting. So interesting, in fact, that I'm probably going to talk about blockchain at a later vlog. It's an area that I'm investigating at the moment. Today, I think actually the most interesting news out there isn't from Adweek Europe, actually, ironically. It's from the Media Ratings Council, so the MRC over in the US, and that's that they're investigating changing the viewability standards up. So before we get into whether or not I think that's a good or a bad thing, we should probably discuss what those changes are and how it might impact the industry. Okay, so what about those two key changes that the MRC are currently considering? Well, the first one pertains to display, and it's a pretty simple change actually. So currently we know that 50% of an ad's pixels need to be in view for 1 second in order for it to be counted as viewable. The MRC are considering upping that to a stricter tier of viewability standards, so 100% of the pixels potentially would need to be in view for 1 second in order for it to count as being viewable. I think there'll be a lot of people on the buy side that welcome that. I think there'll be a lot of advertisers who will welcome that also. I think there'll be some publishers that will be concerned about that, but we'll come on to that in a little bit. The second change that the MRC are considering actually pertains to video, and it's not really a change actually, more of an addition. So they're considering implementing something called a duration weighting, which quite simply is the percentage of the total ad that was actually viewed. And the idea behind this is, you know, having a kind of cross-screen currency almost, so you can start comparing, you know, views on mobile to views on TV to views on desktop, which currently is very, very difficult to do when you just look at viewability alone. So it will be the the duration weighting will be the number of seconds the ad played for versus the ad's total length, and that's where you'll get your duration weighting from. Lots of people, again, think that's quite a savvy idea. What do I think the net outcome of that will be? I think it will probably net out with people running shorter ads potentially, not necessarily to kind of game the system from a viewability perspective, but just to increase their overall duration weighting. So you can expect to see increased auction density, maybe around those sort of 15-second slots that you want to serve into. I think, to be honest, like these changes, in the broadest sense, I think they're positive, right? Whenever someone's trying to increase measurability to improve transparency, I always think that's positive. It certainly fits in very well with the drive towards quality that I spoke to Jason Fairchild, the Chief Revenue Officer of OpenX, about the other day. So overall, I think these are, you know, positive moves. So what are those potential impacts on your clients' campaigns? Well, I think it's fair to say that you might see a modest uptick in your VCPM for your display buying if this indeed new viewability standard is implemented. However, I think it'll only be relatively modest, and let me tell you why. The MRC have looked at this previously, and what they found is when an ad was deemed viewable under the current standard, so that 50% in view for 1 second, 80% of the time it would be deemed viewable under the much stricter criteria for viewability, so 100% of the pixels in view for 1 second. So I think the uptick will be relatively modest. Thinking about video specifically, well, we already talked about increased auction density. I think we can expect to see shorter ads, but actually I think consumers will welcome that. I think it's a challenge for creatives potentially off the back of that to squeeze a meaningful message into a shorter creative. I think overall, there won't be a huge escalation in pricing. However, I think it is fair to say once the standard for quality increases, you might expect to see a modest, and I do say modest, uptick in your viewable CPMs, because obviously that bar's got that bit. Okay, so super short vlog today. I wanted to keep it really, really brief, partly because I've got so much going on. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe on YouTube, give it a like, a share or a comment on LinkedIn. I'm going to be interviewing Index Exchange at last, actually, tomorrow, so I'm really excited about that. I'll endeavour to get that up onto YouTube probably for early next week, maybe Monday or Tuesday, so look out for that one. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next vlog.